The silent Don Captain Marcus Kane woke to absolute silence. No morning traffic, no neighbor's dog barking, no distant hum of the city awakening. The former Navy pilot sat up in his Chicago apartment, immediately sensing something terribly wrong. His military instincts kicked in as he reached for his phone. Dead, not just discharged, but completely unresponsive. Outside his window, the streets stretched empty. Cars sat abandoned mid-intersection, some with doors hanging open as if drivers had simply evaporated. A child's bicycle lay on its side, training wheels still spinning slowly in the morning breeze. Marcus dressed quickly and ventured outside, his combat boots echoing unnaturally loud on the deserted pavement. The silence felt oppressive, almost alive. He called out repeatedly, his voice bouncing off empty buildings. No response came except the whisper of wind through abandoned streets. At the nearby elementary school, backpacks were scattered across the playground, lunch boxes still warm from vanished hands. Whatever had happened, it occurred suddenly. As Marcus explored the ghost town that was once his neighborhood, movement caught his eye. Something metallic glided between buildings in the distance, too smooth and purposeful to be debris. He ducked behind a parked car, watching as a craft the size of a school bus floated silently overhead. It resembled a silver teardrop, unmarked and eerily beautiful. The craft paused above an intersection, deploying what looked like scanner rays. Blue light swept across the area in geometric patterns. Marcus held his breath, pressing himself deeper into shadow. After several minutes, the craft moved on, following some predetermined route through the empty city. Hours of careful exploration revealed more disturbing evidence. In some houses, meals sat half-eaten on tables. Television shows played to empty rooms. A barber shop had scissors and cape abandoned mid-haircut, as if the customer had simply dissolved. Whatever force had taken the population worked with surgical precision, leaving behind only their belongings and confused pets. By evening, Marcus had encountered 3 other survivors. Dr. Jean Rodriguez, a biochemist from the medical district, Tommy Wright, a teenage mechanic with unusual technical skills, and Professor Liu Wei, an elderly physics teacher who spoke in careful, measured sentences. They gathered at the city's emergency broadcast station, hoping to contact other survivors. The radio equipment still functioned, though all normal channels carried only static. Tommy, surprisingly adept with electronics, managed to boost their signal range. As night fell, they began transmitting on emergency frequencies, asking the same desperate questions into the void. That's when the first response came, not from another human survivor, but from something else entirely. The voice spoke English with perfect grammar, but wrong intonation, as if learned from textbooks rather than conversation. Remaining specimens identified. Collection protocols will resume at dawn. Resistance is inadvisable. The 4 survivors looked at each other with growing dread. They weren't alone on Earth anymore, and whatever had taken everyone else was coming back for them. First contact alien voice continued its broadcast throughout the night, repeating the same chilling message every 30 minutes. Dr. Rodriguez paced the radio station floor, her medical training warring with the impossibility of their situation. Professor Liu sat quietly, making calculations on scraps of paper, while Tommy tinkered with electronic equipment he'd salvaged from nearby stores. Marcus stood watch at the windows, observing the alien patrol patterns. The teardrop craft moved in precise grids, scanning methodically. Smaller drones, beetle-shaped and quick, scurried through alleyways and buildings. Whatever these beings were, they operated with military efficiency. They're mapping everything, Marcus observed, looking for something specific. Us, Tommy said grimly, not looking up from his work. They said specimens. We're specimens to them. Dr. Rodriguez stopped pacing. But why leave some behind if they could take everyone else? Why not us too? Professor Liu cleared his throat softly. Perhaps we were not where we were supposed to be. Statistical anomalies. People who deviated from normal patterns that morning. Marcus realized Liu was right. He'd been sleeping off a late night, not at his usual morning jog. Rodriguez had worked an overnight shift at the hospital. Tommy had skipped school to work on his motorcycle. Liu had arrived early to prepare lab experiments. They'd all been outside normal routines that as dawn approached, the alien broadcasts stopped. Instead, 3 large ships descended from the clouds, each the size of a city block. They positioned themselves over major population centers, hovering motionless against the gray sky. The sight was both magnificent and terrifying. "We need to move," Marcus decided. "Find better shelter, gather supplies." They loaded into Dr. Rodriguez's SUV, which still ran despite all electronics being dead. Tommy had rigged a simple mechanical fuel system, bypassing the computerized controls. As they drove through empty streets, they saw more evidence of the vanishing. A jogger's shoes and clothes lay in a perfect pile on the sidewalk. A dog walker's leash was still clipped to a collar, the confused animal whimpering nearby. Their destination was Fort Douglas, an old military installation outside the city. Marcus hoped to find equipment and defensible positions there, but as they approached the base, they discovered they weren't the only ones with that idea. A makeshift camp had formed in the fort's courtyard. Nearly 40 survivors had gathered there, drawn by the same military logic. They came from all walks of life: a construction worker named Pete Morrison, a librarian called Helen Banks, to college students, Jake and Chloe, several elderly residents from a nursing home, and others who'd somehow escaped the mass vanishing. The survivors had organized quickly under the leadership of Colonel Victoria Stone, a retired Air Force officer who'd been visiting the area. Stone was a woman in her 60s, sharp-eyed and decisive. She'd already begun cataloging supplies and establishing security protocols. "Welcome to Fort Douglas," she said, greeting the newcomers. "We've been monitoring radio traffic." "You're the group from the broadcast station," Marcus nodded, explaining their night of alien communications. Stone's expression grew grimmer with each detail. "We've seen the ships," she said, "but this is the first confirmed contact. We need to assume they'll be back for us soon." That afternoon, as if responding to Stone's prediction, the alien craft began a new pattern of behavior. Instead of passive scanning, they started deploying ground units. The survivors watched through binoculars as tall, graceful figures emerged from landed ships. The beings wore form-fitting suits that seemed to shift color with their surroundings. They moved with purpose, entering buildings and emerging with various objects. "They're collecting something," Dr. Rodriguez observed, "studying our technology, our culture." The aliens worked with clinical detachment, showing no emotion or urgency. They seemed particularly interested in computers, vehicles, and anything involving human communication or transportation technology. As night fell, the survivors realized their time was running out. The underground Resistance Colonel Stone called an emergency meeting in the fort's old command bunker. The concrete walls, built during the Cold War, felt reassuring against the alien threat above. Maps of the region covered tables marked with survivor locations and alien patrol routes. "We have two choices," Stone announced to the gathered group: "hide and hope they leave, or fight back." Pete Morrison, the construction worker, scoffed. "Fight? With what? They made 8 billion people disappear overnight." "Not all of them," countered Jake, one of the college students. "We're still here. That means they're not invincible." Professor Liu stepped forward with his calculations. "I have been studying their technology from our observations. Their ships use some form of localized gravity manipulation, but they also seem to avoid certain areas." He pointed to the map, showing patterns in the alien patrols. "See here? They consistently avoid the old subway tunnels, abandoned mines, and underground structures. Perhaps their scanning technology has limitations." Tommy Wright, the teenager, had been quietly working on something in the corner. He held up a device cobbled together from radio parts and car batteries. "I've been picking up their communications," he announced. "It's not language like ours, more like data streams, but I think I can jam their signals, at least locally." Dr. Rodriguez examined the device with professional interest. "This could work. If we can disrupt their coordination, we might have a chance." Over the next several days, the survivors developed their resistance strategy. They would move underground, using the city's forgotten tunnel systems. Teams would strike at alien collection sites. disrupting their operations and gathering intelligence. Helen Banks, the librarian, proved invaluable. For her knowledge of the city's hidden infrastructure, she guided teams through abandoned subway tunnels, forgotten maintenance passages, and Cold War-era fallout shelters. The underground network was vast and largely ignored by the alien scanners. Their first mission was a reconnaissance operation. Marcus led a small team including Tommy and Chloe to observe an alien collection site at the city's main library. What they witnessed changed everything. The aliens weren't just collecting human technology. They were systematically cataloging human knowledge, books, computers, artwork. Even children's drawings were being carefully preserved and loaded onto their ships. The beings handled everything with reverence, as if each item was precious. They're not destroyers, Marcus realized. They're collectors, preserving our culture. This revelation sparked fierce debate back at the fort. If the aliens were preserving humanity rather than destroying it, were they enemies or saviors? Where had the vanished people gone? The answer came during their second mission. While infiltrating a grounded alien ship, Tommy's jamming device accidentally activated a containment field. Inside, they discovered the truth that changed everything. The missing humans weren't dead. They were in some form of stasis, stored in crystalline pods that lined the ship's interior. Thousands of people floated in suspended animation, their bodies perfectly preserved. Among them, Marcus recognized faces from his neighborhood, including Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived next door for 20 years. They're keeping them alive, Chloe whispered in amazement. But why? Their answer came from an unexpected source. As they examined the stasis pods, one of the aliens appeared silently behind them. Instead of raising an alarm, it spoke in that same careful English they'd heard on the radio. You are the ones who evaded collection. Fascinating. The being removed its helmet, revealing a face that was almost human, but subtly wrong. Its eyes were too large, skin too pale, features too symmetrical. It studied them with obvious curiosity. I am Observer Zephyr. Your species is scheduled for relocation to preserve your culture before your planet's transformation. You represent an interesting anomaly. Marcus stepped forward, fighting every instinct that screamed danger. What transformation? What gives you the right? Your star is dying. Zephyr replied matter-of-factly. In approximately 1,200 of your years, it will expand and destroy this world. We preserve species before such events. Your people will live safely in our conservation worlds. The revelation hit them like a physical blow. These weren't invaders but self-appointed saviors, collecting humanity like specimens for a cosmic zoo. The choice of freedom confrontation with Observer. Zephyr continued in the alien ship's sterile corridor. Marcus struggled to process the implications of what they'd learned. Humanity was being saved from future extinction, but at the cost of their freedom and their world. You expect us to be grateful. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her voice tight. With controlled anger, you stole our people, our lives, our choice. Zephyr tilted its head with genuine curiosity. Choice, your species faces extinction. We offer preservation. The mathematics are simple. Mathematics don't account for the human spirit. Professor Liu said quietly, we would rather live free for 1,200 years than exist as preserved specimens. Forever. Tommy, meanwhile, had been studying the ship's interior systems. His mechanical intuition told him the technology, while advanced, followed logical principles. The stasis systems, the gravity manipulators, even the communication arrays had patterns he could understand. What if we refuse? Marcus asked. What? If we want to stay on Earth and take our chances? Impossible, Zephyr replied. Your world will be transformed into a collection facility for other endangered species. The atmosphere, the gravity, the very structure of the planet must change. You cannot survive the conversion process. Chloe, who had been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. But you said we were anomalies. We weren't supposed to be left behind. What makes us different? Zephyr examined her with increased interest. Excellent question. Our collection algorithms predicted your locations based on behavioral patterns. You deviated from those patterns. Statistically improbable, yet here you are. What if unpredictability is exactly what makes us human? Marcus pressed. What if the thing you're trying to preserve can't be preserved in a zoo? For the first time, Zephyr seemed uncertain. Its large eyes blinked slowly as it processed this concept. Elaborate. Dr. Rodriguez seized the opportunity. Humanity isn't just our bodies or our artifacts. It's our capacity to choose, to adapt, to fight against impossible odds. Take that away, and you're not preserving us. You're preserving empty shells. The alien observer stood silent for long moments. Finally, it spoke. Your perspective is troubling. Our models do not account for such variables. Perhaps direct observation is required. To their surprise, Zephyr didn't capture them. Instead, it allowed them to return to the underground resistance with a proposition. The aliens would delay the collection of remaining survivors for 30 days. During this time, humanity would demonstrate whether their unpredictability had value worth preserving. If you can show us something we have not calculated, we will reconsider our methods, Zephyr promised. If not, the collection will proceed as planned. The survivors at Fort Douglas received the news with mixed reactions. 30 days to prove humanity deserved freedom seemed impossible. How do you demonstrate the value of free will to beings who think in terms of mathematical probabilities? Colonel Stone took charge of the planning. We need to show them something they can't predict or replicate. Something uniquely human, Art, suggested Helen Banks. Human creativity has no mathematical formula. Science, countered Dr. Rodriguez, our ability to discover and innovate. Rebellion, said Pete Morrison grimly, our refusal to accept fate. Tommy Wright had a different idea. While the others debated philosophy, he'd been working on understanding alien technology. His mechanical intuition, combined with careful observation of their devices, had revealed something crucial. What if we're approaching this backwards? He said during one late-night strategy session. They collect species to preserve them, but what if we could help them preserve species better? His proposal was audacious. Instead of simply demonstrating human unpredictability, they would show the aliens how human innovation could improve their conservation efforts. Tommy had identified flaws in the stasis systems, inefficiencies in their collection algorithms, and ways to make their preservation technology more effective. You want to help them capture other species? Pete asked incredulously. I want to show them that free humans are more valuable as partners than as prisoners. Tommy replied, if we can solve problems they can't, maybe they'll see us differently. The plan required everything they'd learned about alien technology and human nature. Teams of survivors would work on different aspects of the challenge. Artists would create works that demonstrated the unpredictable nature of human creativity. Scientists would develop innovations that improved on alien designs. And all of them would show that free will, not preservation, was humanity's greatest strength. As the 30-day deadline approached, the survivors prepared for the most important presentation in human history. Humanity's last stand final day arrived with unexpected fanfare. Observer Zephyr had convinced its superiors to witness humanity's demonstration, and 3 massive ships positioned themselves over Fort Douglas. The sky darkened with alien vessels, their presence both magnificent and ominous. Colonel Stone had organized the survivors into presentation teams, each ready to demonstrate different aspects of human uniqueness. The old fort's parade ground became an improvised exhibition space, with displays of art, science, and innovation spread across the concrete expanse. Marcus stood before the assembled aliens, dozens of observer-class beings who had materialized using their transportation technology. Their large eyes reflected no emotion, but their attention was complete and unwavering. 30 days ago, you told us we were statistical anomalies, Marcus began. Today, we want to show you that anomalies are what make humanity worth preserving. As free beings, not specimens, Helen Banks presented first, displaying artwork created by the survivors during their month of preparation. But these weren't ordinary paintings or sculptures. Using materials scavenged from the abandoned city, the survivors had created works that told the story of human resilience. A sculpture made from twisted car parts showed figures reaching toward the sky. Paintings created with pigments from crushed brick and concrete depicted scenes of hope amid destruction. This is unpredictability, Helen explained to the silent observers. No algorithm could predict these specific artistic choices, yet they emerged from human experience and emotion. Dr. Rodriguez followed with scientific demonstrations. Working with Tommy's mechanical intuition, she had discovered ways to improve the alien stasis technology. Their modifications reduced energy consumption by 15% while improving preservation quality. But here's what makes this truly human, she told the aliens. We didn't just solve your technical problem, we understood why you wanted to solve it. We made it better because we care about the lives being preserved, not just the efficiency of preservation. Professor Liu presented mathematical proofs that had emerged from their study of alien technology. His equations described principles the aliens used but had never formally defined. More importantly, his work suggested new applications for their conservation technology that the aliens hadn't considered. Human mathematics doesn't just calculate what is, Liu explained. It imagines what could be. Our unpredictability allows us to make logical leaps that pure calculation cannot achieve. Tommy's presentation was the most ambitious. He had built a working prototype of improved alien technology using only Earth materials and human engineering principles. His device was crude compared to alien sophistication, but it accomplished something the aliens' technology couldn't. It adapted in real time to changing conditions. Your technology is perfect for known situations, Tommy told Zephyr directly. But perfection can't adapt to the unknown. Human imperfection is actually more flexible, more capable of handling surprises. Jake and Chloe had spent the month documenting survivor stories, creating a database of human responses to the crisis. Their presentation showed statistical patterns that defied alien prediction models. Humans had cooperated when competition seemed logical, fought when surrender seemed rational, and innovated when conservation seemed safer. We're not just unpredictable, Chloe concluded. We're unpredictably effective. Our chaos has purpose. Pete Morrison's presentation was perhaps the most moving. He had organized the surviving elderly residents into a storytelling project, recording oral histories of human achievement, failure, and resilience. These stories demonstrated something no algorithm could capture: the way human experience accumulated into wisdom. You preserve our bodies and our artifacts, Pete said to the assembled aliens, but you can't preserve our stories, our growth, our ability to become more than we were. That requires freedom to fail, to choose, to surprise ourselves. As the presentations concluded, the observers conferred among themselves in their data stream language. The survivors waited in tense silence, knowing that humanity's future hung in the balance. Finally, Zephyr approached Marcus. Your demonstrations have been educational. We have not encountered a species that could improve our own technology, while simultaneously arguing for their freedom. And, Marcus prompted, we have reached a decision. Humanity will not be relocated to conservation worlds. Instead, we propose a partnership. Your species will remain on Earth, which we will protect from stellar expansion when the time comes. In exchange, you will help us develop better preservation methods for other endangered species. The survivors erupted in celebration, but Zephyr held up a hand for silence. However, this partnership requires that humanity continue to demonstrate the qualities you have shown us today: unpredictability, innovation, and cooperation. Should your species lose these characteristics, the original conservation protocol will resume. Marcus smiled, realizing the aliens had learned more than they'd intended during their month of observation. You'll find, Observer Zephyr, that trying to predict humanity is a full-time job. We'll keep you busy as the alien ships prepared to depart, leaving only a small observation station. The survivors looked up at the sky with new understanding. They had not only saved humanity from benevolent captivity, but had earned a place as partners in the cosmic effort to preserve life itself. The empty cities would be repopulated, the vanished humans would be restored, and Earth would continue, spinning through space with its unpredictable, innovative, gloriously chaotic human inhabitants firmly in control of their own destiny. Freedom, they had learned, was not just humanity's greatest desire, it was their greatest strength.